Nkeru was the most beautiful girl in the village of Umuaka. Her skin shone like palm oil in the sun, and her eyes were bright like morning stars. She was kind, respectful, and always helped the elderly in the village. Even the women at the stream admired her, but not everyone loved Nkeru. She lived with her wicked stepmother, Madame Ego, and two lazy stepsisters, Obioma and Chinwe. They hated her because she was beautiful and hardworking. While Nkeru swept the compound, fetched water, and cooked every day, her stepsisters sat under the mango tree, chewing sugar cane and gossiping. Still, Nkeru never complained. Her father had died when she was a child, and Madame Ego took over everything. Nkeru had no choice but to obey. One day, news spread like wildfire that a rich young man from the city was coming to the village. He was looking for a wife. Women ran to the market to buy new clothes. Girls started carrying water on their heads, hoping he would see them. But when the billionaire Chuka arrived, he saw Nkeru by the stream, laughing with the children. That same evening, he came to Madame Ego's compound and asked for Nkeru's hand in marriage. Madame Ego's face changed like thunder. She smiled fake smiles and forced laughter, but inside she was burning. How could this rich man pick her stepdaughter over her own blood? Her daughters? She promised to do something about it. The wedding was planned quickly. The village square was decorated. Drinks were ready. Drummers were warming their drums. Everyone waited to see the rich man marry the beautiful girl from the poor home. But Madame Ego had a wicked plan, a very wicked plan. On the morning of the wedding, she called Nkeru into the backyard. "My daughter," she said sweetly, "rub this oil on your body so your skin will shine for your husband." Nkeru smiled and rubbed the oil, not knowing it was mixed with a dark charm. Seconds later, her fingers began to curl. Her skin grew hairy. Her mouth turned into a snout. Nkeru screamed, but the words came out as a bleat. She had turned into a goat. Screaming and crying came from Madame Ego's backyard, but no one paid attention. Everyone thought it was just wedding excitement. Chuka, dressed in white with red beads, sat in the compound, waiting for his bride. Guests were arriving. The drums were beating louder. But inside a small wooden cage near the yam barn, Nkeru, now a goat, sat shaking. She cried in her goat voice, her big eyes full of tears. She looked at her hands, no, her hooves, and shook her head in fear. Meh! She screamed again. Madame Ego sits beside her with a wicked smile. "Cry all you want, animal. You won't ruin my plan." She dragged Nkeru, now a goat, into another old cage behind the house, and she removed the dress from her before putting her in the cage and said, "No one will know it's you," she said, smiling. The cage was dark and dirty. Old yam peels and dried leaves lay everywhere. Nkeru curled into a corner, shaking. Outside, Chuka waited with his men. His heart was full of love, but also confusion. "Where is Nkeru?" he asked again. Madame Ego came out, fake tears in her eyes. "She is gone, my son. She ran away this morning. She said she doesn't want to marry a city man. I begged her, but she refused." Chuka couldn't believe it. "Nkeru would never do that. She loved me. Why would she run away on her wedding day?" "I don't know," Madame Ego lied. "Girls of today, they don't know what they want." Heartbroken, Chuka looked around the compound one last time. "If she comes back, tell her I waited, but I won't force anyone to marry me." Then he got into his car and drove away. Inside the cage, Nkeru heard everything. She cried again, but only "Meh, meh" filled the air. Her tears dropped into the dry sand. From that day, Madame Ego treated her worse than a street goat. She beat her with broomsticks. "Useless animal," she shouted. "You wanted to marry before my daughters? Now look at you!" Obioma and Chinwe kicked her when passing. "Goat bride," they laughed. "Maybe you will be the first goat to wear wedding lace." They refused to give her food. She ate cassava peels and rotten yam. She was covered in flies. Even the chickens refused to come close. But deep inside, Nkeru's heart still hoped. She prayed, even in goat form, that someone would see the truth, that someone would save her. And far away in the forest, Baba Ogidi, the wise man who lived in the forest, felt something strange in the wind. Every Monday morning, Nkeru's suffering became worse. It was as if her stepsisters had picked a special day just to torment her. As the village woke up to the sound of birds and farmers going to the fields, Obioma and Chinwe would stroll into the backyard, laughing loudly. "Meh, meh," they would call, waving their hands in the air like goat horns. "Come out, our beautiful goat sister." Nkeru, lying in the corner of the dirty cage, would lift her head slowly. Her eyes were always filled with tears. Her once soft skin was now covered in dust and flies. She had grown thinner, and her legs shook from weakness. Obioma would peel a ripe papaya, her fingers juicy with its sweetness. "Ah," she would say, chewing loudly. "So sweet. Rich people in the city eat this every morning." Chinwe would laugh and take another bite. If you had married Chuka, maybe you'd be eating papaya in Lagos now, with the air conditioner blowing your goat skin. Then like a cruel joke, they would throw the papaya peels into the cage. Here, Madam Goat Bride, eat papaya, city wife, Obioma would shout.
Mbeh, mbeh.
Chinwe would mock in a high voice, pretending to bleat like a goat. Don't be shy. It's your wedding gift. Nkeru would look at the dirty peels, then look at them. She wouldn't move. Even as a goat, her pride still lived inside her. But hunger always won. Slowly, with tears rolling from her big goat eyes, she would chew the leftover peels while her stepsisters laughed louder. Sometimes they would even pour dirty water into her cage, pretending it was a drink. Champagne for our bride, they would shout. Days turned to weeks, and no one in the village knew what had happened to Nkeru. Madame Ego told everyone that she had run away with a man from another town. People whispered, but no one questioned too much. After all, who would believe a rich man came and she just vanished? But deep in the forest, Baba Ogidi sat before a fire. His eyes were closed and he hummed an ancient song. Something is wrong in that house, he said to himself. A soul is crying, but not with a human voice. Baba Ogidi had lived in the deep forest for over 60 years. People feared him, but they also respected him. His herbs could cure madness and remove curses. That morning, he sat before his fire, his eyes closed, as the smoke rose into the trees. He could hear a sound, soft but painful.
Mbeh, mbeh.
It was not just the cry of an animal. It was the cry of a human soul trapped in the wrong body. Baba Ogidi picked up his staff and walked to the river. He spoke to the water spirits and threw herbs into the water. They floated for a while, then all sank. Ah, Baba Ogidi said, it is worse than I thought. That afternoon, Ijoma, the new housemaid of Madame Ego, went to visit Baba Ogidi in the forest. Her eyes were wide with fear, but she was brave. Baba, she said, kneeling, I believe Madame Ego did something to Nkeru. There's a new goat in the house, and her eyes, they look human. Baba Ogidi nodded slowly. You are right, child. That goat is no goat. It is Nkeru, cursed with ancient magic. Her soul is still inside, but time is running out. Ijoma gasped. What can we do? We must find something that belongs to Nkeru, a special item. Baba Ogidi said, something she touched with love. Then we must pour 7 drops of her own tears on it. But how can a goat cry? Ijoma asked, confused. Ah, Baba Ogidi said with a knowing smile. A soul in pain will always find a way. Back at the compound, Madame Ego sat on her wooden chair, chewing cola nut. She didn't know that danger was coming. Obioma and Chinwe were plaiting their hair and talking about Chuka. He will come back, Obioma said, and this time, he will choose one of us. They didn't know that the same Chuka had sent someone to secretly ask about Nkeru. His heart could not forget her. That night, the wind blew hard through the trees. Nkeru lay in her cage, crying again.
Mbeh, mbeh.
In the forest, Baba Ogidi looked up at the moon and whispered, Hold on, child. Your freedom is near. The next morning, Ijoma woke up early. She had not slept much. Her heart was beating fast. She had to find something that belonged to Nkeru, something filled with love, something powerful enough to help break the curse. She tiptoed into Nkeru's old room. Dust had gathered on her wooden table. The bed was empty, the mat folded. But under the pillow, she found a small necklace made of red thread. Chuka had given it to Nkeru on the day he asked for her hand in marriage. Ijoma remembered how happy Nkeru was. She wore it every day after that. Ijoma held the necklace close. This will work, she whispered, tears in her eyes. As she turned to leave the room, she heard footsteps. It was Madame Ego. What are you doing in that room? Madame Ego asked, her voice sharp like a knife. I was just cleaning, Ijoma lied, hiding the necklace inside her wrapper. Madame Ego looked at her with suspicion, then turned away. Clean fast and don't enter that room again. Ijoma nodded quickly and rushed out. That afternoon, she visited Baba Ogidi in the forest again. She showed him the necklace. Yes, he said, this is filled with deep love, but now we must wait for her tears. Every Monday, they mock her and throw papaya peels at her, Ijoma said sadly. Good, Baba Ogidi replied. Next Monday we shall go, but we must not be seen. If the wicked woman finds out, she may destroy everything. Meanwhile, in her cage, Nkeru lay weak and tired. Her fur was dirty, her body thin. Her heart was full of sadness, but also something more, hope. Somehow she felt that someone had not forgotten her. She felt that someone was trying to help. That evening, Chuka sat in his office in the city, staring at Nkeru's picture on his phone. Something is wrong, he said to himself. I know she didn't run away. I must return to that village. As the sun set, the air in Umuaka changed. The leaves rustled louder. The birds grew silent. And deep in the forest, Baba Ogidi whispered, the day of truth is coming. Monday arrived, and the sun rose lazily over the village of Umuaka. The chickens clucked, and children ran to the stream. But in Madame Ego's compound, something else was about to happen, something the spirits were waiting for. Like every other Monday, Obioma and Shinwei walked into the backyard laughing and carrying two big papayas. Their hair was freshly braided, their wrappers tight and shiny. They had just returned from gossiping at the village square.
Meh, meh.
Come out, our goat bride! Nkiru stood up slowly in her cage. Her legs were weak and her eyes red from crying through the night. She watched as they peeled the papayas, licking their fingers and chewing loudly in front of her. Ah, sweet papaya, Chinwe said, taking a big bite. This is what rich city wives eat. Too bad you became a goat before tasting it properly, Obioma added. Then they threw the peels into the cage, laughing. Here, Madam Goat, your royal lunch is served. Nkiru looked at the peels. Hunger twisted her stomach, but this time she didn't move. She just stood there staring at them, tears rolling down her eyes like small drops of rain. Why is she not eating? Chinwe asked. Is she trying to act like a queen? Obioma opened the cage and kicked the peels toward her. Eat now, goat! Nkiru didn't answer. She only cried. Her goat voice was silent, but the tears flowed real tears, from a soul still human. Hiding behind the kitchen wall, Ijoma held her breath. She quickly ran to the cage with the necklace in her hand. Baba Ogidi had told her what to do. She dipped the necklace into the dust where the tears had fallen, whispering a secret chant the old man had taught her. As soon as the seventh tear touched the necklace, the wind changed. The trees shook. Birds flew away from the compound. The sky darkened. Obioma and Shinwei looked around, confused. What is happening? Shinwei asked. From the forest, Baba Ogidi stepped out, his staff in hand. His voice thundered. Evil has been done in this place. The truth shall now rise. Obioma and Shinwei stood frozen beside the cage, their papaya-stained fingers shaking. Who is that? Shinwei whispered, her voice cracking with fear. Baba Ogidi walked slowly into the compound, his staff tapping the earth. Ijoma followed behind him, holding the tear-soaked necklace tightly in her hand. I speak to the spirits, Baba Ogidi shouted. Something wicked has happened here. A soul cries in silence. A heart beats in the body of a beast. Madame Ego came out from the house, tying her wrapper in anger. Who dares enter my home with noise and madness? Baba Ogidi pointed a finger at her. Woman, your evil ends today. Madame Ego laughed. Old man, go back to your forest. You know nothing. But then something strange happened. The necklace in Ijoma's hand began to glow. A soft red light shined from the thread. The cage where Nkiru stood shook lightly. The wind picked up. The dry leaves danced in circles. Nkiru let out a deep cry. Ma! Ma! But this time, something inside her voice changed. It no longer sounded like just a goat. It had pain and a name. Ijoma ran to the cage and opened it. Come, Nkiru, she said, her eyes full of tears. Obioma screamed. Why are you calling a goat that name? Are you mad? She is not just a goat, Ijoma said. She is Nkiru, your sister. Lies, Madame Ego shouted. Useless girl, I will deal with you today. But Baba Ogidi pointed a finger at her. If you take one more step, your own tongue will curse. Baba Ogidi placed a hand on Nkiru's head, then her fur slowly melted away. Her legs stretched, her snout shortened. Before their eyes, the goat became a girl again. Nkiru stood there, weak but alive, her tears still falling. She looked at Madame Ego, Obioma, and Chinwei and said, in a voice full of pain, I remember everything. Everyone in the compound stood in shock. No one moved. No one spoke. Nkiru stood tall, though her legs trembled, but her eyes were filled with fire. She was no longer a goat. She was the girl who had been stolen from her own life. Obioma stepped back, holding on to her sister. It's not possible, she whispered. How did she turn back? Chinwei's voice shook. It's a trick. It must be a trick. Madame Ego's face turned pale. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. Her lies had been uncovered by the very one she tried to destroy. You turned me into a goat, Nkiru said slowly. On my wedding day. Why, Mama Ego? What did I do to deserve such wickedness? Madame Ego found her voice at last. You were trying to marry before my daughters. I fed you, clothed you, and this is how you repay me? By stealing a rich man before them? I didn't steal anyone, Nkiru shouted, her voice shaking the air. Chuka loved me. I did all the work in the house while your daughters slept and painted their nails. Yet you hated me. Enough! Baba Ogidi raised his hand. Your wickedness ends here, woman. The spirits have spoken. He turned to Nkiru. The curse is broken, but your body is weak. Come, let us take you to the stream and wash away the last of the spell. Ijoma ran to Nkiru's side and held her hand. You're free now, sister. As they walked out of the compound, the sky slowly brightened. The sun pushed through the clouds again. The trees seemed to bow as Nkeru passed, but Madame Ego, Obioma, and Chinwe stood alone, shivering in silence. For the first time, the villagers whisper, "Is that not Nkeru? She's alive? I thought she ran away." No, it was her stepmother. She did something evil. Word began to spread across the village. The truth was out, and the shame was now on those who tried to hide it. But Nkeru's journey was not yet over. Chuka had returned to the village. The sun was setting when Chuka's car rolled into Umuaka village. Dust rose behind the tires as he parked under the big mango tree near the square. He stepped out, dressed in a clean white shirt and brown trousers. His face looked tired, but his eyes were sharp. He had not smiled in days. He walked straight to Madame Ego's compound. His heart beat fast as he remembered Nkeru's laughter, her soft voice, the way she served him food with shy eyes. But now all he had heard were lies. She ran away. She didn't want you. She chose another man. Chuka knocked once, then pushed the gate open. Obioma and Chinwe jumped up. "He's here," Obioma whispered, quickly fixing her hair. "Act sweet," Chinwe said, forcing a smile. "Welcome, Chuka," Madame Ego said, pretending to be calm. "You came back so soon." "Where is Nkeru?" Chuka asked, not wasting time. There was silence. Obioma looked at her sister. Chinwe looked at the ground. Madame Ego forced a fake smile. She ran away, my son. She left with a traitor from Enugu. We tried to stop her." "She didn't run," a voice said behind him. They all turned. Nkeru stood there, clean now, wearing a wrapper and blouse that Ijoma had brought her. Her hair was nicely done. Her body was still healing, but her beauty was clear. Chuka gasped. "Nkeru," she nodded slowly. "I didn't run away. I was cursed, turned into a goat by the woman you see before you." "What?" Chuka turned sharply to Madame Ego. "Is this true?" Madame Ego's hands shook. "It's a lie. She's trying to destroy this family." But then Baba Ogidi entered the compound again. The spirits revealed everything. Her tears broke the curse. "Nkeru is innocent." Chuka walked up to Nkeru and held her hand. "I knew something was wrong. My heart never believed the lies." Nkeru looked into his eyes. "You came back for me. I never left," he whispered. Together they left the compound. Madame Ego tried to speak, but no one listened. Even her daughters could not meet Chuka's eyes. Days passed, but Madame Ego's heart grew darker. Instead of changing, her anger turned to jealousy. Every morning she watched Nkeru walk through the village with Chuka by her side. The villagers now called Nkeru the brave bride, and people came from other towns just to greet her. "She thinks she has won," Madame Ego muttered. "But I still have daughters." Not knowing the curse is now moved to her daughters. Obioma and Chinwe, however, had their own plan. Tired of being mocked and ignored, they began sneaking out at night, visiting the corners of the village where drunk men sat and laughed loudly. "Let them think Nkeru is special," Chinwe said, chewing gum and adjusting her scarf. "We'll have our fun too." They started giving their attention to any man who gave them simple things, pieces of meat, small money, or even just papayas. Soon it became a secret joke among the villagers. "Give her a papaya and she'll follow you home," one man whispered. At first they enjoyed the attention. Men called them beautiful, offered them food and gave them wrappers. But slowly, their names became dirty. Mothers warned their sons. Fathers shook their heads. Even children started singing cruel songs. Papaya sisters, sweet for one night, trouble for many days. Meanwhile, Nkeru stayed quiet. She had heard the rumors, but she did not speak. Chuka begged her to move back to the city with him, but she wanted to heal fully before leaving. "I must forgive myself before I can begin again," she told him gently. Baba Ogidi visited her one evening with a gift, a small bottle of oil. "Rub this on your forehead," he said. "It will protect your spirit from jealous eyes." That night, Madame Ego had a strange dream. In it, she saw her daughters covered in flies, sitting under a rotten papaya tree. They were crying and begging her to save them, but her own hands were tied behind her back. She sat up, sweating, and whispered, "What is happening to my children?" Outside, Obioma and Chinwe slipped through the gate again, giggling and carrying stolen papayas. But the spirits of the land had seen enough. The moon hung low that night, heavy and red, like a warning from the sky. The air was thick with silence. Dogs refused to bark. The wind stopped moving. In Madame Ego's compound, strange sounds began to rise. First, there was a low buzzing of flies, hundreds of them, circling the windows of Obioma and Chinwe's room. Then came the smell, strong, sour, like rotting fruit. Obioma woke up first. "Chinwe, something is smelling." "What is that?" Chinwe turned in her sleep. "Maybe it's the leftover papaya." But the moment they sat up, they screamed, their legs covered in red rashes, their arms swollen, their lips dark and peeling. Obioma scratched her skin until it bled. "Ah, what is this?" Chinwe looked in the mirror and screamed, My face is changing." Madame Ego ran into the room with a lamp. When she saw them, she dropped it. Their beauty was fading, fast. They cried and begged their mother. Do something! Help us! But deep down, Madame Ego knew. She had played with dark powers, and now the curse had turned around. In the village square, Baba Ogidi sat under his sacred tree. He had been expecting something. When Ijoma came running with the news, he only nodded. The spirits have returned the punishment to where it belongs, he said calmly. No one escapes what they plant. Meanwhile, Chuka sat by Nkeru's side in the garden. They heard the rumors and saw the fear in people's eyes. Your stepsisters, Chuka said gently. Do you feel sorry for them? Nkeru looked up at the stars. I don't wish them pain, but I also don't feel sorry. They laughed while I suffered. Maybe now they will understand. The next morning, Madame Ego carried her daughters to Baba Ogidi, crying, Please forgive us. My daughters are dying. But Baba Ogidi refused. No more help from me. Let the one they hurt decide. Madame Ego turned to Nkeru, who had just arrived with Chuka. Please, she begged, kneeling. Forgive us. Help them. Nkeru looked at her stepsisters, sick, ashamed, and silent. Madame Ego was still on her knees, crying and begging. Her daughters, Obioma and Chinwe, were ashamed to look at Nkeru. The girls who once laughed at Nkeru now looked like shadows of themselves. Nkeru stepped forward slowly. Her heart beat fast. She remembered the pain, the cage, the humiliation. She remembered eating papaya peels while her stepsisters mocked her. She turned to Baba Ogidi. If I forgive them, will the curse be lifted? The old man nodded. Yes, the spirits are watching. They do not forget, but they honor mercy. Nkeru closed her eyes. She took a deep breath and turned to Madame Ego. I forgive you, she said, her voice shaking. Not because you deserve it, but because I want peace. A wind blew through the hut. Leaves swirled around their feet. Obioma and Chinwe coughed loudly. Their rashes began to fade. The swelling on their faces slowly reduced. The curse was lifting. Baba Ogidi smiled. Chuka walked up and held Nkeru's hand. You are strong, he said. Stronger than anyone I know. But Nkeru didn't smile. She turned to her stepsisters. You are free now, but don't ever forget what you did. Use this second chance wisely. Obioma and Chinwe cried, too ashamed to speak. From that day, Madame Ego stopped walking with her head high. She became quiet and humble. Her daughters helped clean the village square and worked in the farms. No more late nights, no more papaya for pleasure. Nkeru and Chuka soon got married in a small, beautiful ceremony. The whole village danced. Baba Ogidi blessed them, and Ijoma stood proudly as Nkeru's maid of honor. Peace returned to Umuaka. And though the memory of the goat curse never fully left, it became a lesson for everyone. Jealousy destroys, but forgiveness saves. If you were Nkeru, would you have forgiven your stepmother and sisters? Why or why not? Do you believe people like Madame Ego and her daughters can truly change? What would you do if someone you loved was cursed unfairly? Would you fight back or seek help? If you enjoy the story, please like, subscribe, comment. For more captivating stories, love you all.